Okay, so let's get this straight right out of the gate. The RC is not an IS coupe. And I could see how one would think that, because I thought that. If you look at an RC, then look at an IS, and you squint just right, you can see how the RC is a coupe version of the IS. But in reality, it's part GS, part IS convertible, and part IS. So we clear on that? Because if we're clear, let's move on to the RC 350 F Sport. So in the grand RC world hierarchy, there is the RC 350, and there is the RC 350 F Sport, both V6s. And then there is the V8 RC F, which is the mental patient of the lot. We produced a completely separate film on that. You guys definitely need to see it. Not just because of the car, but because we had its chief engineer on that episode. This guy is like a saint in the car world. Or actually, no, he's like a samurai in the car world. And not only that, we filmed it at one of the most beautiful racetracks in the country. But I digress. So let's get back to our V6 brethren here. So if you guys saw our RCF film, you remember this car is not exactly an IS coupe, now is it? It's a GS here, an IS convertible here, and an IS here. Logic behind that is the car's chief engineer, Yaguchi-san, was looking for a more rigid platform in which to base his performance coupe. Now that is not the only GS bits in this RC. The front suspension, the rear multi-link suspension, the dampers and the bushings all come from the GS. But wait, there's more. Do you remember when me and Gene put the GS F Sport up on the rack and he showed you a four-wheel steering system? Guess what this car has? Kind of the same setup. At high speed, the rear suspension steers in the same direction as the front wheels, giving you more stability. But again, there's more. Like the GS, you can get this car in rear-wheel drive, or you can get it in all-wheel drive. However, there are two changes when you get it in all-wheel drive. You drop 2 gears from the transmission, so it goes from an 8-speed to a 6-speed, and the 0 to 60 goes from 5.8 to 6.0. There's also the suspension system. You get the adaptive suspension system, so you go from the base system that's in the 350, then it goes up to a Sport and a Sport Plus. Did any of you guys have Supras back in the day like I did? Me and my idiot friends, we would put the Tokiko 3-way adjustable shocks on our cars. Think of this as a very fancy Tokiko 3-way adjustable shocks, although this comes from the OEM courtesy of Yaguchi-san. So I'm in the base eco mode right now. Think of this as MPG. I'm driving on the freeway right now. Granted, I did get some time on the track with this car, but now we're out in the streets. So I really don't want to stay in the eco mode. I want to demonstrate the adjustable suspension. So we're going to go to the sport mode, which is one level up. Transmission mapping changes and the suspension changes. A little bit stiffer. This is great and all. I think this would be great for driving around town. But let's say we want to go back to the track to Monticello Motor Club. I'm going to go to Sport Plus. The suspension gets significantly stiffer. Like it's almost, I don't want to say it's flat cornering, but it's much sharper, which translates to much quicker. And then it's more responsive. The throttle mapping changes as well. Riddle me this. What's the biggest difference between the RCF and the RC 350 F Sport? You were thinking engine, weren't you? Actually, you would be wrong. If you remember back to our RCF film, that car had braces from the firewall to the top of the strut towers. Why? Because it had almost 500 horsepower. This car, well, it doesn't really need 500 horsepower. This is the RC 350F, which has a V6 that puts out 306 horsepower. So if you remember back to me and Gene's film with the IS 350, same engine here. So it puts out 277 pound-feet of torque. Now, let's go back to that RCF film. That car puts out 389 pound-feet of torque at a very high 4,800 RPM. I will give you one guess where peak torque comes in here. Okay, so what does that mean? Well, you would need to change the way you drive. Think Honda S2000 as opposed to like Mercedes V6 or V8, or even what's coming out of Cadillac these days. Here's an example. So I'm in the left lane and I'm driving at freeway speeds and I'm in a higher gear. So let's say I want to pass or I just want to accelerate. If I put my foot to the floor right now, notice there's like hesitation. Nothing's really happening right now. I'm accelerating, but I'm accelerating slowly. Now let's try this a different way. So here I am back down to normal highway speed. I'm still in that higher gear, but let's say I downshift, 3 gears to 4. Now the thing absolutely sings. You can hear it to the top of the power band. This thing, you need to get it to sing like Pavarotti himself to get torque out of it. Or, is there a Japanese equivalent to Pavarotti? I don't know. If you guys know, let me know in the comments below. I'd love to find out. I haven't been exactly shy over the years about telling you the cars I like, Lotus, and cars I don't like, Lexus. But I gotta tell you, Lexus as of late has made a lot of changes. And one of the things is adding a lot more, dare I say, personality to the inside of their cars. So here's a really good example. Notice the general shape of the dashboard of this thing. I am probably one of the few people that actually likes that shape. It's very geometric, very 80s look, but I think it's entirely cool because it's got a whole aviation kind of theme to it. The only thing it's missing is like toggle switches. And then look at some of the details here. This one's got this funky kind of aluminum look. The car that I drove up here in had like a very funky, not really funky, but more like old school Zebrano wood. Think like 1970s era Mercedes-Benz, but more of like a Japanese color to it. Very, very nice touch. And then the seats, dare I say, incredibly comfortable, but very supportive, even on this V6 powered F Sport. Now, if you guys saw the film we shot on the RCF, the seats in that, incredible. The only thing they're missing is the lumbar support both on this one and the RCF. It goes in and out, but not up and down. So depending on how tall your torso is, it might be in the wrong place. For me, this one's in the wrong place. Then there's this really interesting touch with the headliner. I love cars with suede headliners. Like, I would pay extra. You know how we go through the I'll take that option for 500 or more game with the Porsches? I would gladly pay this for the suede headliner in a Porsche. But this, it's not suede. It's kind of like, are any of you guys like long distance runners? I'm a distance runner, so I wear the Nike Dry Fit stuff. It's kind of like the Nike Dry Fit stuff, but in like an upscale kind of way, if there is such a thing. And then the last kind of neat design touch, the clock. Notice that it is an analog clock. Granted, it's not the IWC clock that you would see in a Mercedes-Benz S63, but this is also not $164,000. It is a very cool little simple clock, kind of like Matthew Humphreys. You guys remember Matthew Humphreys, who designs the Morgans? He does his own watch line, Matthew Humphreys Design. You guys need to check that stuff out when you get a chance. And last but not least, this is a Lexus, so it is high tech. They've gone away with the rotary controller, and they've done this kind of like mouse pad, trackpad kind of controller, which controls all of the Lexus informed functions. So let's get off the track for a couple minutes and really demonstrate this four-wheel steering. We could do this on the track, but it's no challenge to do it on a beautifully manicured track in a declining radius track. But what I want to find out is, how does it work in real-world situations? So we're on the freeway. We're actually on the New York State Thruway. By the way, it is great to be back in my home state, and we're going for pizza tonight, but I digress. So let's do a quick lane change. I'm gonna do the manual here. I'm in Sport Plus mode. So let's downshift a couple of gears, and let's pass my cameraman, Goga, in the RCF. You can see Goga here. There he is. Say hi to Goga. There he is. Blue RCF. He's having a good day at the office. We're going to cut him off. Notice how quickly I'm able to make lane changes. It's almost effortless, and there's very little input onto the wheel to make that lane change. So let's go up here and pass. This is a Trooper. Let's indicate. Go down to third gear. So significantly sharper and quicker inputs is really the difference with the four-wheel steer system. And that's with our Sport Plus on. Granted, if I were to go back to Eco mode and try to do the same thing, I wouldn't have as much throttle response, but the steering system still very minimal inputs to actually make those lane changes. And that's what you would get if you were to do a four-wheel steer system on your daily commute. So any of you guys that have a GS, F Sport, or you're going to have this one, you will have the four-wheel steering. So starting with the GS and then onto the IS and now this RC, Lexus has given us this new corporate grille. Now, I'm not going to tell you what I think about it, but what do you guys think? Why don't you let me know in the comments below? Yay, nay, go bigger, smaller, more bling, less bling? Or hit us up via our social networks, MotoManTV, all one word, MotoManTV, all one word, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Oh, and one more thing. Why haven't you followed us yet at MotoManTV, Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram? So click here to watch one of our 250 other episodes, click here to subscribe, and can we ask you guys a favor? Can you watch these within the first 36 hours? Because it gets us more views, which gets us more dollars, which gets you more episodes. And of course, follow us, MotoManTV, all one word, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. I'll see you guys next time.